What's up again, everybody? Alright, today we end our Flesh and Blood Hero Spotlight, and I've saved what many think to be the best class for last. Before we get into it though, if you like this content and if you want to see more videos about Flesh and Blood or any other game that I feature on my channel, please consider liking this video, leaving a comment, and subscribing. Doing so helps the channel grow and gives more exposure to these games that we cover and that we love here on this channel. Alright, let's talk about Bravo and the Guardian class. Just like the other heroes in Flesh and Blood, Bravo has 40 health, 4 intellect, and an ability that reads, Action. Pay 2 resources. Until the end of the turn, your attack action cards with cost 3 or greater gain Dominate. Go again. So Bravo Showstopper here gives your expensive attack action cards a keyword called Dominate. What is Dominate? Well, Dominate attacks make it to where your opponent cannot defend with more than one card from their hand when you're attacking. So they can't toss like 2 cards from their hand to protect against your attacks. Only one. That also means that they can't block with a card from their hand as well as playing like a defense reaction from their hand. This makes blocking incredibly difficult. I can't understate how powerful this keyword is. You might look at this and think, well, like that's pretty similar to the brute keyword Intimidate, right? And in a way you'd be right. Intimidate lowers the amount of cards in your opponent's hand, thereby making it harder for them to block with multiple cards. Similarly, this makes it to where your opponent may only block with one card. Both keywords do have some upsides in comparison to each other, but by and large, I think Dominate here is just oftentimes a better version of Intimidate. Alright, let's look at Bravo's weapon, Anothos. Anothos is a 2-handed guardian hammer that has 4 attack and a once per turn action, pay 3 resources and attack. It also has an effect that says if you have 2 or more cards in your pitch zone with resource cost 3 or greater, Anothos gains +2 attack. So essentially this is either a 4 attack weapon or a 6 attack weapon. So based on stats, this is the most powerful single weapon in the game thus far. And it's definitely the most expensive to use as well. Alright, so Bravo's ability gives your attack action cards Dominate, and the Guardian weapon gets stronger if you pitch 3 cost or higher cards during your turn. Those are 2 abilities that don't necessarily tie together, even though they're both powerful, right? Well, you might think that that's a bad thing, and really what it means is you can take this class into several different directions when building your decks. It just depends on what class cards you want to make use of. Speaking of class cards, let's look at the common and rare cards in Guardian. So looking at the average cost of cards here in common and rare slots, we see that Bravo's cards cost a whopping on average 2.7 resources to play, making him by far the most expensive class when it comes to pitch costs. Also, looking at his cards, you're going to notice that there's 5 attack action cards and all of them have 7 attack or above, including one of them that attacks for 9. All of those cards have the keyword Crush as well. Crush triggers when the attack ends up dealing 4 or more damage to the opponent. So if you can give all of these big attacks the Dominate keyword via Bravo's ability, then your opponent can only defend with 1 card from hand and they're forced to either block with equipment plus the card from their hand, or they're forced to have already played a defense reaction card in their arsenal so they can defend with that because it's not coming from their hand. Otherwise, they're likely going to take that damage and activate the Crush keyword on your attack action card. Interestingly enough, 3 of the other class cards in this class are action cards that create an aura. Auras stick around in the battlefield until the effect removes them. Those auras will do different things when your turn begins again, things like revealing a card and gaining life, buffing your next attack, or making your cards defend for more than what's printed on them. The one defense reaction in the common and rare slots defends for 7 and can be paid extra to defend for even more. So what does this all mean game plan wise? Well, we've got some hugely expensive cards that deal massive damage if they're given Dominate. We have some strong auras that help you defend against your opponent's attacks or do other strange, cool things. And we have a weapon that can attack for 6 each turn if you pitch your expensive cards. You can build Bravo in a bunch of different ways, from huge swings each turn to long, slogging control decks. There's a ton of tools at your disposal here to take things whichever way you'd like, but all of them seem generally powerful. Let's shift over to the super rares and mythics now. Starting from the left, we have the mythic card Crippling Crush. It is a 7 cost attack that pitches for red, so you're almost never pitching this, and it attacks for, 11. Yeah, 11. It has the crush effect that'll trigger if the attack does 4 or more, which is likely because you're attacking for 11. When it triggers, your opponent then just has to discard 2 cards. Ugh, this card is so gross to play against. You essentially have to have a defense reaction card to combat this. It is so good. Spinal Crush is a mythic card that costs 5 and attacks for 9. Its crush effect cuts off the go again keyword completely for your opponent on the following turn. Depending on what class you're up against, Ninja for example, this can actually be backbreaking. The super rare cards start off with Cranial Crush, a 6-cost action attack that pitches blue, which is great in this class, and it attacks for 8. It has a crush effect that prevents your opponent from drawing cards during their turn. Now, this doesn't stop the card refill at the end of an opponent's turn, just any cards that would be drawn during their actual action phase. So this is not as broken as it looks or as you would think at first glance, but I wouldn't want this to go through if I were like Ninja. Forged for War is an aura that costs 2 and gives your equipment 1 defense. Pretty straightforward, but at the right time it can make your equipment much more potent when defending. Finally, Showtime is awesome. It's a 3-cost action that pitches blue, again really good, and allows you to tutor out an attack action card like Crippling Crush and put it into your hand. Oh, and also because it's an aura, it sticks around until the start of your next turn when it destroys itself so that you can draw a card. Are you kidding me? This thing is amazing. All right, on to the equipment. Helm of Eisen's Peak is a Guardian Head equipment that has the effect action pay 1 resource, destroy Helm of Eisen's Peak. Your hero's intellect, aka how many cards you draw at the end of your turn, gains 1 until the end of the turn. In other words, on the turn that you destroy this, you will draw to 5 instead of 4. So that's pretty solid. And finally, the legendary Guardian equipment, Tectonic Plating. Once per turn action, pay 1. Create a Seismic Surge Aura token. Go again. So what does the Seismic Surge Aura token do? Well, it says at the beginning of your action phase, destroy Seismic Surge, and the next Guardian attack action card you play this turn costs 1 less to play. So essentially, you're paying 1 on your turn to discount your next attack action card by 1 on your next turn. Kind of like rolling over that resource to the next turn. It's really cool. This is actually the legendary equipment that I have. I have none of the other ones, only this one. Finally, let's look at some tournament reports and see where Bravo falls. Spoiler alert, they do really well. Looking at the results of the most recent calling event, the Calling Austin, we see that Bravo made up 32% of players, and a massive 7 Bravo players advanced out of the sealed portion and into the top 8. Once in the top 8, 3 players drafted Bravo, and they finished 1st, 3rd, and 4th, so they finished in the top 4. In constructed tournaments, Bravo has also fared really well. In the Card Merchant tournament I've mentioned in the previous videos, 3 Guardians entered the 18-person tournament, and 2 of them made it into the top 8. One of them took 1st, and one of them took 5th. And at a 15-person tournament at Bay Dragon Games, 3 out of the top 4 finishers played Bravo, including the winner. So that's the Guardian class. I think that Guardian has been by far the strongest class right out of the gate, both in limited formats like Sealed and Draft, as well as constructed level events. Why is this? Maybe it's because of the sheer power of the dominate keyword. Maybe it's because of the Guardian strategy of throwing one big thing at your opponent and forcing them to block with only 1 card can be incredibly effective against newer players. And with the game being new, it's just now getting to the point where the player base understands how to play against it. Or maybe Guardian is simply just the class to beat here in the outset of Flesh and Blood. Only time will tell. So what do you think of Bravo? Are you a fan of Guardian? I'd love to see some fun Guardian lists. So if you have a good Guardian deck, feel free to leave it in a comment below. Also, let me know what you would like to see next. I have now finished the 4-part series highlighting the different heroes in Flesh and Blood, so if you've got an idea for what you'd like to see next, sound off in a comment below. And if you like these videos, please consider subscribing and sharing with your local group. As always, thanks for watching.